back 300 years maybe, going back 250, 300 years, Prithvi Narayan Shah dominated the surrounding tribes, he dominated the surrounding areas and created modern-day Nepal with a large standing Gurkha army. Okay. He then dies and subsequent kings take over, and although Nepal stays relatively peaceful, a Prime Minister, Bhimsen Thapa, takes over and begins to aggressively expand Nepal. So before Bhimsen Thapa, you had Prithvi Narayan Shah and Nepal looking like that, and then they take over Sikkim, Kumaon, Garhwal, areas down northern India, below the Terai. Now, he staunchly hates the British. He wants their land, so he starts to move south into India, and this upsets the British, as you might imagine. And the British decide that they are going to teach Bhimsen Thapa and the Nepalese Gurkhas a lesson. So they send an army to defeat the Nepalese armies. But of course, they underestimate how good Gurkha soldiers are. They underestimate the bravery, their tactical skills, their hardiness, their perseverance. So they send these 4 columns to defeat the Gurkha army, only to find that they are met not with disaster, but with a much harder fight than they were expecting. So Gurkhas, as you know, all Gurkhas are Nepalese, but not all Nepalese are Gurkhas. So you are Gurkhas, and I'm sure you know of many Gurkha restaurants that are not Gurkha restaurants, but there we are. But this is where it comes from, Gurkha, in Nepal. And this is what Gurkhas 200 years ago looked like. And as you can see, you today as a modern 2015 soldier is wearing completely different kit. Everything's changed, everything's modern, up to date, except the cookery. So 200 years and you're still using a kukri as a frontline modern weapon. There's not many armies in the world can boast that tradition of still using the same weapon effectively 200 years later. So, one of the great setbacks of the British when they set off to defeat the Nepalese armies was at Kalunga, 1814, and the British under General Gillespie sets off to defeat the Gurkhas, Nepalese Gurkhas that are on the hilltop, and of course is met with a much harder fight than he was expecting. The battle stalls. Gillespie then decides to take matters into his own hands, and he then charges up the hill ahead of his men to just in front of the Gurkha positions, only to be shot dead by a Gurkha marksman. So back in 1815, I'm sure that chap would be winning Bisley, as you're all winning Bisley today. So General Gillespie didn't know what good marksmen Gurkhas were, so he dies. And the British, after having to resort to siege tactics in order to defeat the Gurkha army, they erect 2 memorials at Kalunga. One is to General Gillespie and the British who died in the battle, but the other is to Balbudda, who was the commander of the Gurkha fort. So way back in 1814, you have the British erecting a memorial as a tribute of the respect of their gallant adversary. So 200 years ago, they recognised the talents of Gurkhas. Recognising the talents of Gurkhas and recognising the fact that it is better to come to peace terms than it is to carry on fighting a formidable foe, the Treaty of Sigauli, 1816, is signed, and from then on a state of everlasting peace and friendship was to exist between the British and the state of Nepal. By now, Gurkhas have started to be recruited into the British Indian Army, and you have 1st, 2nd and 3rd Gurkhas being raised all around 1815, which is why we're celebrating Gurkha 200 this year, 2015. And 2nd Gurkhas, of course, is now part of the Royal Gurkha Rifles. So now they are in the British Indian Army and they are being used effectively in a variety of battles. This one is the Battle of Kunja, where 2nd Gurkhas are sent 60 odd miles to deal with 3,000 rebels who are causing difficulties in northern India. So at the end of 60-mile march, they arrive and immediately set about breaking into the camp where the rebels are held out, and they do that by cutting down a tree, using it as a battering ram, break through the doors, enter the fort, and kill and take prisoners all those that are inside. And that battering ram is part of the Royal Gurkha Rifles insignia at the moment, because on the cross belt they wear a little ram's head, and that ram's head comes from the Battle of Kunja back in 1824. Bhimsen Thapa, who was fervently anti-British, this is Jung Bahadur Rana, a subsequent Prime Minister, who was to the same degree pro-British. By now, Nepal is a true and devoted friend of Britain, as is Britain a true and devoted friend of Nepal. So every time Britain needs help or assistance, the Kingdom of Nepal steps up and provides help, provides troop, provides equipment, provides money in order to assist the British wherever they can. Here are Gurkhas fighting at the Battle of Sabrown in the Sikh Wars, where the Commander-in-Chief singled out Gurkhas for special tribute, praising their gallantry and steadfastness, and commenting that they were every bit as brave as the grenadiers that they were fighting with. But it was 1857 and the Indian Mutiny that created a whole sea change in the way Gurkhas were perceived, not just by the military authorities but by the British public, because by 1857, when the Bengal army mutinies and the Indian regiments